In 1963, a local man in the central Turkish town of Derinkuyu took a sledgehammer to his basement wall. He was renovating his house and expected to find solid rock behind the plaster. Instead, the wall crumbled away, revealing a dark, entirely silent passageway descending into the earth. He had accidentally broken into the top floor of a subterranean complex that went straight down. Excavators eventually cleared out 18 separate levels, reaching a total depth of roughly 85 meters below the surface. This was a permanent, fully engineered city. It contained apartments, communal kitchens, schools, and stables large enough to hold herds of livestock. Up to 20,000 people could live down here at the exact same time, for months on end, with food and fresh water. To survive that deep, they carved vertical ventilation shafts that ran the entire depth of the structure to regulate temperature and keep oil lamps from filling the corridors with smoke. If an invading army approached the surface, the residents simply rolled massive, 500 kilograms circular stone doors across the corridors, sealing themselves inside. From above, the town looked like a quiet rural village. We tend to look at maps of the ancient world, see the vast stretches of blank space, and assume nobody lived there. We treat the archaeological record as a mostly complete picture. Our history books catalog only the fragments the Earth hasn't managed to hide yet. You can see this process of concealment even on a highly localized scale. In 1850, a violent winter storm battered the Orkney Islands off the northern tip of Scotland, ripping away enormous sections of the coastal sand dunes. Beneath the sand was a settlement called Skara Brae. It dates back to 3100 BCE, making it older than the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. It had been swallowed by the shifting earth. The preservation under the dunes is remarkably intimate. The houses still contain stone bed frames built directly into the walls. Stone shelving units stand exactly where they were placed, and the central hearths still hold the ash from the last fires ever burned there. There are no scorch marks or weapons to suggest an attack, but in a passageway connecting two of the houses, excavators found a single string of beads, broken and scattered across the floor in a line. Someone was moving quickly. The necklace snapped, and the beads sat exactly where they fell for 4,500 years. Thousands of years of sophisticated domestic life can vanish entirely beneath a gradual accumulation of sand. They remain invisible, requiring a random weather event to let the light back in. If nature can hide a village, it can also hide a metropolis. For centuries, ancient Greek texts described Thonis Heraklion as the greatest port city in all of Egypt. Modern scholars debated its existence, often dismissing it as a literary invention because there were zero ruins on the coastline. Then, in the year 2000, underwater archaeologists found it. The entire city was sitting roughly 10 meters beneath the surface of the Mediterranean, with its temples, statues, and harbor infrastructure largely intact. It was erased by a geological process called soil liquefaction. During major seismic events, saturated clay soil can temporarily lose its structural integrity and behave like a liquid. The ground beneath Thonis Herakleia gave way, causing the buildings to sink downward, staying mostly upright as the ocean closed over the rooftops. Cross the globe to a coral reef in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and you find Nan Madol. Here, an ancient ruling dynasty built a sprawling administrative capital directly on top of the water. The site consists of 92 artificial islands constructed from stacked basalt columns, some weighing up to 90 tons. The people who moved and placed these enormous volcanic rocks over 4 centuries had no metal tools, no wheels, and no draft animals large enough to haul them. We place strict engineering ceilings on what we assume ancient peoples could accomplish, but those models are based exclusively on the evidence that hasn't sunk beneath the waves. Sometimes the blind spots in our history aren't created by geology or weather. Sometimes they are manufactured. Beneath the modern streets of Rome sits a civilization that predates the Roman Empire itself, the Etruscans. The Etruscans were master metalworkers and urban planners. Early Romans adopted their architecture, their paved streets, their drainage systems, and even their gladiatorial games. Eventually, the Romans began claiming they had invented it all of themselves. Romans intentionally packed Etruscan rooms and temples with dirt and rubble, sealing doorways to build their new capital directly on top of the evidence. The erasure was thorough, yet a few sealed pockets survived. In 2016, archaeologists opened an untouched Etruscan tomb. The 2,400-year-old painted frescoes on the walls were still vivid. On the floor sat bronze drinking cups, holding the dried chemical residue of wine left for the dead. History is actively curated by the victors. The narratives we accept as absolute truth often sit directly on top of the people who were silenced to create them. This leads to a massive revision of the archaeological record. For most of the 20th century, textbooks taught that the ancient Maya in northern Guatemala built brilliant ceremonial cities, but that these sites were isolated outposts surrounded by millions of acres of empty, pristine jungle. In 2018, researchers deployed LiDAR technology over the Maya Biosphere Reserve. LiDAR works by filing millions of laser pulses from an aircraft toward the ground. Most pulses bounce off trees, but a percentage pass through gaps, mapping the solid surface beneath. When researchers digitally stripped the trees away, the blank space vanished. Hiding under the leaves were over 60,000 unknown structures, defense walls, terraces, and highways connecting hidden cities. The LiDAR data revealed a dense, interconnected, heavily managed civilization that reshaped the entire landscape. This single scan threw out decades of established demographic modeling, pushing the estimated population of the Maya lowlands from 2 million people up to as many as 11 million. Millions of human lives, entire chapters of a complex society, were missing from the record because a tropical forest grew over the evidence. We have lost sprawling ancient capitals and thousands of years of domestic life to the slow drift of sand, the shifting of tectonic plates, deliberate political erasure, and the relentless growth of jungle canopies. The 2018 LiDAR survey that upended the Maya population model only scanned roughly 2% of the total forest. 98% of that area remains hidden in the dark. The places we have found are mostly just the ones we stumbled into by accident. Our understanding of the past hinges on a man renovating his basement, a random winter storm, or a construction crew drilling a foundation in the exact right spot. The map of human history is nowhere near full. The most extraordinary chapters of our past are likely still buried, waiting for us to finally look in the right place.